Please welcome to the stage Mimecast's Field CISO, Beth Miller.
Hello, good morning. It's a wonderful video to follow. And as you can see, I'm not alone here today. I'm really excited to have a panel of our customers here. Although their opinions and their views are their own, we're really excited to hear from them and have them share their expertise. So we hope to have you walk away here with some actionable takeaways, some practical use cases, and then hopefully some pro tips as well. Let's go ahead and get started. Youri, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Hello, everyone, and good morning. So my name is Youri Corsini. I'm a CSIRT manager at Sanofi, a pharmaceutical company. And as you may hear from my accent, I'm based in France. So I hope I'll still be understandable.
Merci beaucoup.
Hi, everybody. I'm Maureen, Holland. I'm engagement and delivery manager for AstraZeneca. I bring a unique perspective because I am not from the security area, but I am in privacy and compliance and legal, and I have an interesting role that's trying to bring together the merging areas, the business areas, and see how it impacts security. So happy to be here.
Lloyd Zygler, Chief Information Security Officer for OceanFirst Bank. We're a regional bank here centered in the New York metro area.
And I'm Erik Hart. I'm the global CISO for Cushman and Wakefield. We're the third largest commercial real estate firm in the world with over 52,000 employees.
Thank you so much. As you can see, we have a breadth and depth of experience on this panel today. So we're going to dive right in. We have about 30 minutes and a very ambitious agenda to cover. But as Mark started with the AI, that it's rapidly transforming cybersecurity, both as a powerful tool for defenders, but also as a weapon for attackers. So Youri, what AI threats have you seen recently?
So yeah, that's a really nice question. I would say AI is changing how attackers are working and how we are defending. First of all, we fear the APT group, the Advanced Persistent Threat groups, and they are technology aware. They know what is in the market, and they will use this opportunity to attack faster, to deliver faster, and to be more efficient. You can imagine that, yeah, with the raising of AI, or specifically of LLMs over the last years, they have been able to develop their malware faster, to redevelop it faster, and maybe to avoid some classic antivirus detection. So that's a challenge for our responding team, our incident responders. And we need to use AI on the defensive side to be able to counter how fast they are now. And obviously, it's not the AI was present into the tools before machine learning, for example, was existing for the detection, but the raising of LLM can help to get a concise view for the defender faster than before. It can summarize, it can help you to pre-analyze the attacks and the detection that you have in order to be faster to respond.
We talked about a little bit too with containment. And Lloyd, I know you're using AI as well.
Yeah, there's a huge push across all business areas to incorporate AI. And again, when I think about human risk, I have a little bit different perspective, and as someone who loves words and loves to define words, you'll find me asking, well, what does human risk mean to you? What does compliance mean to you? And for me, what I love about the technologies, and for me personally to be here, I'm an advocate of Mimecast software, especially the Aware product. These technologies prior to Mimecast were built, especially Microsoft, were built for IT teams, where you do all your work in the products. But when you're responding to regulatory audits or you're responding to litigation and people are questioning, well, what prompts did you use? And how do you defend what they're doing? And how do you know that there's no unethical behavior going on? There's really not a good way to collect that information because I have to be able to get those insights out of the technologies. And Mimecast, for me personally, is one of those products that's way ahead of the game in allowing me to take insights into action and turn around reports within 24 to 48 hours. And I'm not here to, be negative about Microsoft 365, but I just can't do it using Microsoft 365. So AI prompts are going to be really integral to the things that I do.
Thank you so much. Lloyd, we were talking a little bit about AI from also a incident response standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're using AI in a few different ways, both in an incident response as well as in protective measure, whether it's being able to analyze attacks that are coming in working to understand, increased and really targeted phishing, vishing, smishing. We've also started to use it now in a preventative way, and actually using that to enable our user, whether it's tokenizing sensitive data before they push it out into the LLM. So again, we're able to maintain control over it within the environment, as well as also just in educating our users and giving them hints, again, as potential emails come in that are of interesting nature, to say the least.
And Maureen, just real quickly to touch back on what you were going to say, I know that governance plays a big role in AI. How are you educating your employees about AI and governance?
Well, again, I think one of my challenges, and I'm hoping to use this conference as kind of a launching pad for some conversations that I want to have publicly, of when you say AI, what does it mean? And so for me, I wish we could categorize it, right? Am I using it for personal productivity use? Am I trying to integrate it into our systems? Because there's different risks depending on how you're using it. So to lump it all together and not to break it out, you can't educate your employees on the best practices, and governance is one of those loaded phrases as well. Well, what does it mean? Is it information governance? Is it data governance? Is it AI governance? So we've got to simplify things and make it less complex and figure out how to come up with a blueprint that we can implement and plug and play into all areas of the business. And that's where my role comes into play.
Absolutely. Hey, Erik, if we can kind of deep dive into some of these advanced practices or use cases to leverage Mimecast solutions to strengthen security postures, how do you use our technology to reduce risk? And how do you measure it also?
Sure. So I think there's, one of the things is you look at security, stuff like that, and more of it now is it's about taking all of this data, and it was mentioned, and putting together and providing insights to people. So one of the things, that we've used that our employees actually really love is the cybergraph. So this is where it's analyzing the email and it says, hey, this is the first time you got this from somebody. It'll even classify it with a color. And when we first rolled it out, I had a lot of trepidation because when I started with the organization 7.5 years ago, they had just come out of a major phishing event, and email and things like that for people were really touchy. Like adding a banner, just that said external email, I'm like, you would have thought that I was trying to steal their children just by like adding a little bit. And I'm like, really? I'm like, it just says external email. Our customers are upset. No, they're not upset. You're just like, But anyways.
It was new.
Yeah, so when we did it, it was very much like the team and stuff who did it here is here with me. And I'm like, okay, go do it. And I'm like slowly like hiding behind my desk going, just waiting for the email. And people actually love it. They want the information to help them nowadays. They want to have that stuff. And you look at all the things more and more now. Security in general for me is changing from the threat act and things like that too. There's a lot of data analytics that have to go on. Yes, AI will help with that. AI will also, yes, it will hurt us as well as you continue to see, emails now get better. Like we have to evolve training. I think years and years ago, what did we used to do for training? We used to say, hey, look for the emails with bad grammar or the crown prince of wherever is not sending you $10 million to your bank account and stuff like that. That isn't like that anymore. So you have to look at the data context. And I think Rob and Mark, you hit on it. Like some of the things they're going to show in today and tomorrow, like how you can analyze these things is really going to help because it isn't the same way as it used to be, as we used to train people on.
Yeah, Youri.
I would say it has never been that easy to craft an email that targets your patients, your industry, everything. It's really easy. You can browse LinkedIn, find where you're working, Erik, and just also look for your patient and craft something that looks real without, as you were saying, grammar knowledge, orthograph knowledge. That's really easy even for people that have less English skills, I would say, or less whatever language skills. So, but is now available to anyone, and maybe the low signals that you were explaining earlier is something that will help because we will have to distinguish all of these small signals in order to be able to detect the threat.
And I want to hit on one of the things, Mark, you said it during your keynote, like emails number one, collaborations number two. Literally just yesterday, all of a sudden we were sitting in CAT, and I get this weird Teams message like, you've never received this from somebody. I'm like, who is this? I'm like, I think it's one of our partners who's trying to sell and do something. And I right away went to him and like, is this real? Is this really from you, sort of thing? And now those attacks, there's another avenue directly to your employees for most organizations, not everyone, for them to be, have communication. And instead of an email and back and forth, now it's live. It's happening in those seconds and those sorts of things. So you even have less time to analyze and respond. And that's why it's important to put those securities around both of those communication vehicles.
Pulling through a thread that's kind of come up a little bit, but Lloyd, I'm going to direct this to you. How important is internal collaboration as well, as far as stakeholders?
Internal collaboration is paramount for us. I mean, on a daily basis, I'm probably spending more time with my different business units and operating functions as I am with my own IT organizations, whether it's working with legal as we're preparing for a contract, whether it's working with our business lines as we're either offering new products, bring on new employees. Like, we're going through a really great growth right now in our wealth management space. And it's even another type of user. So understanding what do they care about, where do they work, how do they work with our customers. It's a different type of customer base. And as you both have talked about fingerprinting, understanding what's kind of normal, what's not, and then being able to build a program, but frankly also be able to enable my users to be that first line of defense because they're out there.
Absolutely. So, Maureen, directed towards you, our favorite word, resilience. But how do you see kind of governance owning a piece of this as well? Or compliance, either?
Could I just piggyback on something you were talking about, Teams data? Because Teams data is a passion of mine right now because it is the most challenging. Emails and Teams chats are probably the most integral part of any investigation or litigation. And so, yes, we can go to other data sources. I've heard a lot of talk about mobile devices. I mean, there's so many circumstances of why we would go do that. But core to any internal investigation or litigation is Teams data, and there is no easy way to deal with Teams data. So I am going to plug Aware because, again, it's a personal passion of mine. But resilience, I love that word. I think I've always thought about it from a personal perspective because when you have challenges, it's like, how do you get through this? And what I'm going through right now to try to build influence around bringing Aware back to our teams, because I used to have it, hasn't been easy. It's not for the faint of heart to navigate corporate. But Mimecast first exposed me to cyber resilience, I think earlier this year, and it completely changed the way I look at things. And so I've expanded, and I'm now starting to pay attention to it. So I've seen governance resilience, I've seen organizational resilience, and in all these things, there's one core central, which I think is a new risk, and we talk about e-discovery, and I'm not going to challenge Mark on words because e-discovery might mean something different to Mimecast than it does to me, but data resilience, because I love the e-discovery industry. For anybody who's familiar with it, it was an incredible 20-year career, but the more I learn from the security people here and the conversations and the networks I have, you have no idea how much data is leaving the organization for that process. And it's just because there's no focus on it. And the e-discovery industry has no incentive to reduce our data footprints. So it's going to be up to us to do all the governance and the data minimization. I mean, let's bring privacy into this. The two core principles of privacy are data transparency and data minimization. And if you asked me to take data out of, again, Microsoft 365, because I'm not saying anything that's specific to me, it's industry-wide, you would, well, I know there's quite a few people, I won't call you out, because the data volumes, I mean, someone was sharing about 40 terabytes of data being pulled out, and how do you sort through all that? So I think the future around governance is we need people like you. I want the technologies that you have. They weren't built for people like me to respond to either a regulatory audit or an investigation or litigation. So the partnership with Mimecast is you are the closest that allows me to get what I need out of there quickly, but it's still not good enough. And we have to find a way to minimize our data footprints, and because there's a lot of risk that's around that.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a long-winded answer.
You hit on all the points.
Passionate.
Yeah. So kind of, again, pulling that thread a little bit. So Gartner predicts that in 2027, 50% of CISOs will formally adopt human-centric design practices into their cybersecurity program. So again, Lloyd, I'm going to pick on you. What does human risk management mean to you, and what does it look like when it's done well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for me, human risk management and human risk security, it starts with our user. And again, that means whether it's identity, whether it's the accuracy of that information, it's by recognizing that as we keep getting better and our tooling gets better, the adversaries continue to recognize You can have every toy under the sun, but if I can convince a user to click a link or to take a phone call or whatever it may be, it's game over. So it's about how do I flip that around and enable my users, whether it's from a process and from a technology perspective, and also really reward them when they do the right things. Like, it's really great. And I've had this sometimes with the business where they'll come to me and say, hey, we're about to start doing this activity. We're about to start offering this service. Can we educate our customers, not just about the product about it, but also say, hey, as we're doing this, you may get phishing emails as our customers. You may get calls because, again, every single time that we're out in the marketplace, it just raises up our exposure. I mean, even just, I was talking to my team earlier this morning. We had our earnings call. I said, please. I said, we're doing it right now while we're up here.
Yeah.
And I was like, just be aware. Again, we're going to start to see that activity. Make sure we're educating our users. So they're out there right now, just reminding folks. Again, you get something that's a little suspicious, whether it's a phone call, an email, something just doesn't sniff right, please pick up the phone. We're not the no police. We won't bite your head off. We want to help you. And then, frankly, we'll recognize folks. I will send emails out to the entire company saying, hey, this group caught this item, or this group collaborated with my team. And it just keeps getting everyone to want to participate.
Thank you. Eric, same question, please.
As we look at that human risk side, and I'm still, again, like kind of was talking about from a data perspective, it was touched on. Almost everybody in here is using, beyond Mimecast, some other partners, the CrowdStrikes, the Zscaler, Microsoft, like whoever doesn't have to deal with Microsoft in here, God bless you. So
is there anyone left?
Yeah, so but you have, like, again, what I find fascinating now is I really think the security team's job and even the CISO job is evolving into very much, there's a lot of data analytics that has to go on. When you look at the human risk side, you want to pull in information from CrowdStrike, from Microsoft, from whatever you have to be able to paint that picture. And what I tell them, the companies, like, I want to paint that like FICO-like score. Like when I talk to our board about that, they all know what FICO score is. Like, okay, yeah, I got that. Don't have to explain it. And what we want to do with that is then drive actions for, if 80, 85, 90% of your people are not behaving in a risky way, then that should be rewarded. Like, they shouldn't have to go through certain things. And a focus on, I think it was like 8%, 8 to 10% was said, like, those are the people you need to focus on that cause 80% and stuff of the risk. See, I do remember this. So I'm like, and I think that's what you need to do. Yeah. It's not peanut butter spreading do the same awareness training across everybody in the company. Yes, you still have to do something, don't get me wrong, but like, focus on those people who are truly causing risk to your organization. Show those to your executive leadership, their management, the region that they're in, so that actions can be taken with them. And if you can give time back into the business, I mean, that could be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of hours, or I'm sorry, dollars, which in hours that you can give back for the people who are doing the right thing.
Hey, Beth, do you mind if I jump on?
Please, I do this. Yes, please.
From a data analytics perspective, one thing I found really effective, again, when I got to OceanFirst, was I started teaming right away with our data analytics team to look through security data. And why was that important? They had the inherent trust of leadership that reporting that's coming out from that team was trustworthy because they've been doing it for years from a business perspective. And my team at first was like, well, why did we let them into the SOC? I said, don't worry, this is going to work out. And we actually presented our first monthly metrics to leadership. But when we did, I said, by the way, we've worked on this with the data analytics team. And they were like, okay. And there were maybe like 1 or 2 questions. And my 2 leads came afterwards. And they're like, we used to get 20 questions. I said, yeah, I borrowed on the trust that team has to be able to be effective. And I really, that ties really back to the partnership. Yeah. And I would just definitely say for folks here, look for those security champions and privacy champions in the business and leverage them for your shared security mission.
Maureen, I know.
Well, so again, you can see the passion coming out where, as I listen to all of this and I understand the internal employee risk, right, the human risk inside, my mind and the things, and I don't know if this is good or bad, but my security network of people who share information with me have taught me well, it's outside the organization, right? And so, Mark, you defined human behaviors and human action, but I would also say there's a huge element of human inaction. So this data is leaving our organization. Well, I shouldn't say it because it's not. This is pretty much everybody, not my current employer. But the amount of data leaving the organization, I read an article, right? So third and fourth layers of people outside the organization. So I read the article where they're now attacking, the threats are against our outside counsels, and they're out like our service providers. And who's vetting? Like, are they really telling you that, are they outsourcing our data even further? So yeah, sure, it could be third and fourth layers, but there could possibly be fifth. And what scares me the most in bringing it back to the AI piece of it is I was at a conference 2 weeks ago, and it was an e-discovery one. And I'm looking around as they're talking about certain things, and they're celebrating like petabytes of data, like leaving the organization. I'm going, I wonder what my security friends would say about all this. Like, is it just me, or is it unnecessary? But there's a new risk, and they're inexperience, right? I don't want to call it ignorance, but there's inexperience. And now all of a sudden, overnight, it seems like everybody's a data breach expert, and they're pushing these things, and I just worry about organizations because they have no way to qualify who's really experienced and who can really guide me, because there's so much level of risks that it's changing everything.
So that was a great setup for the last question, because we are going to run out of time, and I want to make sure that we ask this one. So as we wrap up, what word or phrase would you offer as advice for this audience on how to reduce risk and build resiliency?
I think the first thing is collect the data. You will need to build this human risk management. So you need to look at all the sources of data you will have, and then take, as you were explaining, Erik, actions for the good players and actions for the bad players, and being a little bit less strict with the good players, and for the 8% that you're mentioning, Mark, getting more restrictions into what they are going to do. That's this adaptive security and user-centric security that we need to deploy across the organization for the next years.
Maureen.
Did you say word or phrase?
Word or phrase, and why?
Free.
No, but here you get to pass.
Cross-functional collaboration. One of the best things, my role is fairly new, but it's on a larger scale. And what I do is not a one-person job anymore. There's no way that I can be on top of all the regulations. But it's so important that, to me, security is the foundation of everything. It all starts with your access controls and your gateway to kind of protect the organization. So be willing to admit that you don't know something and to hear diverse perspectives, because we all need each other. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to manage, and it's not even a one-person team anymore.
I guess my catchphrase would probably be flexible but intentional. And by that, in terms of that, be flexible that as the business needs change, or as your users change in both what they're delivering and as well as who they're interacting with, not just to start with no or niet or whatever your favorite way of saying no thank you, but intentional both in what you do and how that aligns with the products you have, as well as intentional so that people don't come back and say, well, you let Jane from accounting do this, but I'm from HR, you're not letting me do this, it's the same thing. Well, no, it's not. And I think as long as you're able to kind of drive that and be forward with that, you'll be better than on most days, at least.
Thank you. And Erik?
I'm going to channel my inner Monty Python. Run away. Just run away. No. We can't. I come back to a lot of the things, data-driven. It's not about, don't feed FUD, don't do this. Look, the data that you have out there with all the things you're using, again, the Microsofts, the Salesforce, all the stuff like that. There is so much data you can take and put together to paint a picture. And it is hard for leaders and executives to argue against data and activity of what is going on versus you paint the picture that, fuzzy purple panda bear is coming to get you and stuff like that, and the threat actors. Yes, that is out there, but they don't understand that. When you say, hey, look, 25% of our users aren't doing any of this, we can take this away, that will reduce our attack surface, our footprint, and I'm like, that makes it better, and oh, by the way, maybe you can save some money too, in your spends and certain things. That's what I think is important, because they cannot argue with your data that all of your companies have today.
Thank you so much. I'm going to do my best to kind of summarize for the audience where I think, we landed on some of these. But Youri, we started off with really the idea of timelines being expedited and how that works both for and against you, depending on the tools that you have. And then Maureen, I think we talked a lot about teamwork and when I think about the way you describe a lot of the work you're currently doing, we've talked about this, is really as a tourist, right? Who's out there, who then gets to come back and speak that language of risk across the entire organization.
I'm interpreting the language because everybody talks differently with the same words. So
With
we have to
resilience and
define
risk.
it consistently.
Yep.
That's a good way.
And then Lloyd, I mean, there is so many contextual nuggets you left for this audience to be able to go with. But I think the thing that I will take away personally is the idea of treating each person equally but different depending on the situation. And then Erik, I really appreciate the level of expertise and discipline that you bring to this craft. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Great. Can we get a big round of applause for our panelists today? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.